Hey, you like cars? What's good? We're back again. You know what we're here to do. You already know what time it is too, because it's the favorite time of the season, favorite time of the day, evening, or whenever you listen to this podcast. But it's the CarQuicks Podcast, episode 80. We're getting up there. We are getting up there. Consistency, determination. That's what I'm talking about. So before we get started, you already know how I get down. How are you doing out there? How's your friends, your family, the loved ones, the children? I'm glad you're joining me again for another week, another podcast, more automotive news, more car news, more updates, just more, every single week, more and more. So I'm driving right in. Now, I will say this. We ain't got that much just happening this week, but you know what? That's just what it is, You got to go with the flow. But I do got a couple things I want to discuss and talk about, and I got some GR Corolla updates for anybody out there that has a GR Corolla and cares enough about what I speak on it. But guess what? You're here listening to me, so you're along for the journey regardless, okay? So let's go. Let's see what we got. Let's talk about something. There is a... Okay, let me back up. As car enthusiasts, right, we love our nameplates. Like, we love the cars that we grew up with. We love the cars that have just something that we love and, really attest to. Something that's like, we love this car. We know about it. We grew up dreaming about it. That's the car that we know and know the name of, right? But right now, a lot of nameplates, there's really no lineage that dealerships or these manufacturers necessarily care about. And what I mean by that is we're going to see the names of beloved cars on models that we just didn't think it would ever get to this level. Let me give you a perfect example. Mitsubishi Eclipse. Now, right now, if you go to the Mitsubishi dealership, the only Eclipse that you will see is called the Eclipse Cross, which is a basic subcompact, compact SUV. Now, if you talk to a car enthusiast and we say, what do you know about the Eclipse? In our heads, we're thinking of DSM era. We're thinking about GSTs, GSX. We're thinking about all-wheel drive 4G63 turbo motors. We're talking about the era of the Eclipse. And then you also think about like Too Fast, Too Furious, when you were just like, at that point in time, we knew it was a downward trend. And then now it's an SUV. I mean, you would have talked about a fall from grace. You would have talked about, remembering the times of yesteryear. And Eclipse is a perfect example. Or you can have people that currently don't like the fact that the Mustang name is on the side of a Mustang Mach-E, which is an electric SUV. So what I'm saying is that the names of what we know, most likely as the years go on, they're going to attach themselves to something that you just didn't think would be the case. And we have a new one. Now, this one's a little bit interesting because Acura a couple of days ago announced that the RSX is coming back. Now, the RSX, to car enthusiasts, myself included, is a sport compact car, early 2000s. That is what everybody thinks about. They do not think about anything else. However, the version that they have coming out this time is an electric SUV. And folks was online like just typing away, just like, I can't believe we have the RSX coming back, and it's an electric SUV. So Acura announces that the RSX is coming back. They have it on the Camouflage EV, an SUV. I'm also on the fence, just like, man, the way that car manufacturers have been just dialing back and just reevaluating everything when it comes to EVs, I'm just like, man, do we really got room for this? They already have the ZDX. I can see them doing the RSX because obviously for the name, they're using X for the electric cars. I get the correlation. So the RSX being the compact one, the ZDX being the larger, mid-size, full-size, basically SUV that they have. It makes sense. But everybody else was mad because they wanted to see a two-door sports compact coupe take the RSX name. The interesting part about Acura is that they actually did answer back an old nameplate that went back to what it should have been. And so, like when the RSX first came out, people were expecting a replacement for the Integra, and then it was called RSX, and they were mad that it was called RSX. The RSX finally got its popularity and caught up because in Japan it was still called the Integra. Here in the US it was called the Acura RSX. Obviously, aftermarket things caught up. People became to love the car. Now Acura brought back the Integra name. At first, they put it on a sport compact four-door sedan that did not have anything related to Integras of yesteryear when it came to sport compact coupes that had heavy aftermarket, Type Rs, things like that. Then they brought in the Integra Type S, which kind of answered the call, taking the same chassis, or not the same exact chassis, but tweaked a bit of the FL5 Civic Type R and brought it into the Type S. Wide body, same turbocharged 300 horsepower motor. So they answered the call of people saying, you brought back the Integra name, but you didn't give us any performance. They're like, here you go. Here's that performance. Now they come back with the RSX name. It's an electric SUV. Folks is mad. So Acura can't win. They can't win at all. Like, they came back, gave us the Integra, even though originally the RSX was supposed to be the Integra, and they called it RSX. People were mad, got over it. Then they brought back the Integra. They didn't really like it. I was one of those people too, because when they announced the original Integra, they rolled out like the OGs, the DAs, the Integras, the Type Rs, and they're like, this is the lineage. This is where Integra is known for. And then they rolled out that four-door sedan. I was like, okay, what are we talking about? They redeemed themselves with the Type S, and that's where we're at now. So now they have the RSX coming out as the EV. We don't have any news on it, but given where this is landing, where this like subcompact, compact electric EV world is, I'm thinking probably close to 50,000, under 40, decent range, hopefully over 300. Don't know what it's going to look like, but if we're going off the ZDX, very angular design, and that's pretty much all we got. I mean, I'm not saying it's like it's not the most exciting thing as far as the lineup goes. I don't know if the market was clamoring for an electric EV from Acura in the smaller size. However, I could be wrong because the Model Y is well known and sells amazingly. So there definitely could be room. BMW has smaller compact electric SUVs. Acura definitely could be trying to tap into that market as well. So that's what they got coming on next. But I just found it funny just hearing the internet and hearing people just mad. Like, yo, I can't believe they brought the RSX back and they made EV. I even made a little funny post saying somebody's going to hear the RSX is back and be highly disappointed. Like, they're going to look at those pictures and be like, I was looking for a two-door coupe with like a wing or something, and I got an SUV. But listen, if you truly care about the name, then you care about Integra. And there's an Integra Type S that is legitimately one of the great sport compact cars. Go and buy one of those. Now, going on to something else. There was a video that kind of floated around this week, and it was, man, there are times when you're just like, I would hate to be that person. I'm not making that phone call. And that was a video of a guy, somebody, I say a guy, it could have been a woman driving the car. I don't know who was behind the wheel, but there was a Ferrari technician who crashed a Ferrari F40. And let me tell you, this was no normal crash. The video, and I'm going to put it in the screen if you're watching a video of this, like, subscribe to the YouTube channel and on my Patreon. I don't got Patreon, what I'm saying. I'm talking about my podcast, Spotify, all that. Go and follow me, like, and leave a review, do all those things. But anyways, somebody was driving a Ferrari F40. It looked like it was a wet road, too. No. Like, the road didn't look like it was. It definitely look dry. It didn't look like it was a hot summer day when the tires had grip. They looked like they went to accelerate, back in, stepped out immediately. Now, I don't know what happened between feeling the back end, stepping out, and trying to correct it, but it didn't look like they tried to correct it. It looked like they slammed on the brakes, and then I just sent the rest of the tail end flying around, flew into a pole, front end flies off. This thing is cooked. And I'm like, man, you want to talk about not wanting to send that phone call? I'm gone. Yo, I'm calling Uber, like, come pick me up on the side of the road. Like, man, what happened? Don't worry about that. Let's get to the airport. Okay? Let's get to the airport, get my family, call up my boss, tell them, hey, the F40 flipped. I crashed it. It's on the side of the road. Don't worry about me. I'll be fine. I'll figure it out. And I'm hanging up. New phone and all. Okay? They don't know the story behind. There's a story saying it's one of the most driven F40s. Like it had the highest mileage. I think it was like 44,000 miles, which obviously 44,000 miles ain't really that crazy. But for a Ferrari F40, that's absolutely nuts. That's like you putting 200,000 on your Toyota. So I don't know what the story was, what happened. Clearly they lost control. Who's to blame? Are they, they're going to have to pay for it? I'm sure there's some insurance claim on it. And the other thing is that when it comes to these supercars like F40s, McLarens, F50s, save for burnt to the ground, they're going to save this car. Like they're not letting it just be crashed. They're just going to take it, rebuild it, recertify it, and then put it right back on the auction block or give it back to the owner. But they're most definitely going to rebuild this. But that's, there was a time, a little bit of a story. I started off my job, career stuff, working on cars. And I worked in a shop that dealt with Ferraris. I worked for them. And most people look at that and be like, oh, that's mad exciting. You get to work on Ferraris. You're driving them. And I used to always tell people the most nerve-wracking thing was going to pick up a Ferrari, because there was always like, okay, yes, you're driving a Ferrari. You don't own it. You can't afford it. I can't pay for the deductible. I can't pay for the insurance. It's not mine. The owner's waiting for me. Yeah, it may sound cool to driving on the highway, but I'm like, you really can't do nothing in it. You don't even want to risk trying to feel out and stretch his legs for fear of something like this happening. And you having to explain, how am I going to cover the cost for a $250,000 car? The Ferrari F40, in this case, multiple $1 million car. See, it wasn't a good time. Like, I was not feeling it. I even had a job where I was delivering cars as a magazine journalist, and I remember we had a fleet of some exotic cars, and I would hate, which sounds crazy, but I would be tasked with driving like the Murcielago when it came out into New York to go to magazine events and press events, and I used to hate it. Because one, the blind spots were absolutely nuts. I mean, yeah, it was fun going to the tunnel, dropping the gear, smashing through there. The problem is, once you came out the Highland Tunnel, you couldn't see nothing. It was just you, blind spots, and yellow taxi cabs. So imagine you driving a car that you're like, this is worth almost $500,000. I can't see anything. And then you would come to places and they would say, hey, we need you to park that thing on the street. And you'd be like, you want me to do what? You want me to parallel park the Mercy? No, sorry, dog. I pull in and I pull out. Okay, I don't do a K turn. I don't go parallel. Okay, I pull in and then we pull out. Okay, that's what we do. But sucks for that person. Unfortunately, for the owner, for the people involved, to crash an F40, especially in that way where you're just testing it after you worked on it and you're just trying to see if everything's good. But listen, cold tires, wet roads, old tires, wet road, whatever it may be, just make sure that it is clean, clear, and there aren't telephone poles lining wherever you're at. Because if it wasn't, they would have just kind of spun out into the grass and recovered and went back on the way, but they smacked into a pole. Now, getting back into some exciting news, and it's not really exciting news, but it's cool to see when companies are answering and fulfilling what the car enthusiasts or what the market is asking of them, and that is Ford. So the CEO, Jim Farley, he was recently speaking to, I forgot what outlet he was speaking to, but he was talking to the media, and he was talking about Ford's commitment to fun cars. He said, and I quote, "No, rule number one at Ford, no boring products." And he was at the automotive news event, and he said, "We do not make shampoo." And if you look at what Ford has been doing, like for instance, they said, we're going to keep making the V8 engine as long as we possibly can, which is dope. They even hinted at the possibility of a V8 Mustang, which I was like, that's fire, especially considering the fact that the Dodge Charger and the Hemi and Stellantis, and we'll get to them later, are busy floundering around trying to figure out what they're going to do. I was like, that's a dope idea. Then they got the Mustang GTD, which is the $300,000 GT3 Mustang for the street. Crazy. You dropped it on Nürburgring, got under 7 minutes. I mean, they're really doing it. They got Raptors. They have, Broncos. They just have a lot of fun products in their lineup, save for the fact that there isn't any answer to like the Ford Focus RS. That's what I was talking about last week with the EcoBoost Mustang, saying if Ford's on this mission of no boring cars, Take that EcoBoost motor, slap it in something like a rekindling. Back to the nameplates. Look what I'm doing here. All these segues and all these calling backs. Think about the nameplate I talked about in the beginning with the RSX. Think about a Ford Focus Escort RS, or I say Cosworth because that's the only one I could think of, but I'm not thinking that they're going to build something like that. But think of the idea of those old school rally, wide body, homologated street cars that they made at that time in the early 90s, late 80s. I mean, take that idea, EcoBoost motor and that. So Ford is on that path, fun cars only. And they discussed that the reason why they're following that is because they use Porsche as an example. Like during this event, he kept saying, we looked at Porsche and what they did with the 911. We're like, why can't we do that? And which is what they're doing with the Mustang. So we have price points all the way down to EcoBoost, all the way up to a $300,000+ GTD. So it's like the GT2, GT3 RS of what Porsche does with the 911 relative. I know the price points. Nobody's cross-shopping 911 GT3s and Mustangs, but I'm just talking about how they build out the car in multiple price points to appease whatever customer is coming to the door. Same thing Porsche does relative to their price point. And so really what it shows when you look at Toyota with Gazoo Racing, you look at Ford talking about what they're doing, and if you look at, I would even throw Mazda in there because they're really adamant on trying to get back that iconic, like we make sports cars, we make cars that are for the enthusiast, for the driver. So they might make their way to releasing something like that SP iconic concept they had to look like the next iteration of an RX-7 or an RX-8 or whatever rotary power motor they want to put in there. But what I find fun is that when companies are saying this, it does show that they are listening to the feedback of the customer, of the enthusiasts, of the people that just like seeing these cars out there. And Toyota is one of those other brands that was doing the exact same thing again. And so using Porsche is a great benchmark because what they do with the 911 and what they do for the cars that give them the ability to go all the way with the 911, like Cayennes and Macans and stuff like that, that is what they're trying to emulate by saying no boring cars. Everything we have is going to have a purpose and driven, and we're going to have a lineup of exciting cars at all times. So I'm excited to see what other things that Ford has up their sleeve. The GTD is the latest and greatest thing they did. They already have the Dark Horse. They have the new Mustang. So I do think there's room for one other type of model. What that is, I don't know, but just a speculation, they can do a lot. Now, I'm jumping over to Porsche right now again, but it's kind of wrapped around what I talked about in the very beginning. So Porsche said that they're reconsidering another EV plan, and that is a Macan EV. So the Porsche Macan was the compact SUV that they had under the Cayenne, and for this generation, for the 2025 model year, they turned it all EV. There is no ICE-powered Macan, even though it is one of their best-selling cars. Now, why would you do this? Last week, I said the same thing about car companies releasing EVs and axing the ICE version of what they had instead of slow walking it. 2 podcasts ago, I talked about BMW's M3. They're making an electric version. And I said they're also making an ICE version alongside of it, which I said is a very smart decision. Because instead of you isolating your core group saying we no longer have anything for you, we're going to try to target a brand new group who's never been over here. They're like, here's the ICE-powered one and here's the electric one. If by chance you want the ICE one and you just want to check out the electric one, maybe we can entice you to go that route. Maybe you have the means to buy multiple cars and you're like, I'm going to come back and get the electric version, but they're giving people options. So Porsche is back to reconsidering this because the sales are down. The Macan sales are down. The Cayenne sales are down. They're trying to figure out and reevaluate to make sure they're ahead of the curve. One of the things I did notice when I was online reading about this article is that I didn't realize how expensive the Macan EV is, even though I shouldn't be surprised because it's a Porsche. And I haven't gone on the configurator recently to remember what price point it was and out when they first announced these, because I do think the Macan EV is a very good SUV, a very good Porsche for the EV efforts, and I like how it looks. But I do get that if there is no ICE version, you've literally iced out your original demographic. And so now they're coming back. They're slow walking this. They didn't say definitively that this is happening. What they said is they're considering it. But when Porsche has been reconsidering their entire EV lineup almost every other week. They're in the news like, hey, we're not doing that anymore. Hey, stop doing that. We're not doing this anymore. We're changing this over. We're not just doing EVs. We're also doing hybrids. We're also doing ICE-powered. So all these companies are just shuffling and restructuring. And they're not the only ones. Stellantis is having, a time. That's what I can say. They're having a time. Sales are down. They're bad. They got new CEOs. They're trying to right this ship, but they still got to get through these rough waters. And so, more rough waters. I talked about the RAM Rev and the trucks that they're releasing and what they're working on. And in conjunction with the RHO, the one with the twin turbo inline six, 540 horsepower truck, in connection with the new Ram, electric EVs and the 350-mile one, they're getting rid of the one that is a 500-mile, 229 kilowatt-hour battery pack system. They made an announcement to their suppliers saying cease production of this battery pack. The truck's not coming out. They're going through it. I think they will still release some electric truck. I mean, they would have to. They're already all the way there. They already produced it. They've shown the concept. They can't just back out and say we're not producing any at all. Though if they did that and on a coattail said, but we got a brand new Hemi, I'm sure their sales just do this, skyrocket. So Ram is now reevaluating the largest range pickup truck they had, which is interesting because I thought it was a competition with like Ford F-150 Lightning, even though it can't get that high, or the Tesla Cybertruck. But the range was like the selling point. If you can have a 500-mile range on pure EV, then on a truck, you're already at the top of the pile as far as the conversation goes for what truck I should get. So we'll see how they adjust and what they move to. But man, Stellantis, they have a lot to do. Now, who has been doing well, kind of flipping this into some positivity? The GR86, which I do love that car. I'm just not trying to deal with a boxer motor anymore. But the GR86 as a chassis, as a car, as a fun, inexpensive sports car, a little two-door coupe, excellent. All right, I love the ergonomics inside. I like how it looks. I considered one before the GR Corolla, so I love how this thing looks. They sold 11,426 units last year. You're probably like, okay, cool. That ain't bad, 11,000. Where it got interesting, or where it got crazy, GR86 selling 11,426 models doesn't sound that crazy compared to other brands that sell 30,000 of something or 40,000 of something. However, in this compact sports car market, they said if you add up the sales for the BRZ, which was basically the Subaru cousin of the GR86, the Nissan Z, and the Supra together, they didn't sell more than the GR86, which is nuts. The Nissan Z, we already know. I barely see them on the road. Enough people have talking and spoken up now saying it was cool. It was pretty much a reskin 370Z. It's not exciting enough. That's just kind of what has failed that particular car. And so one of the things that is like for the GR86 right now to sell that much, and we're not even at the next generation, which is like the Mark III, third generation they're talking about, they're hinting at the new Toyota G20E motor, the new 4-cylinder turbo motor being in this car. Now, I don't think it's going to be a turbo version. It might be a naturally aspirated one. Don't know all the details yet, but just seeing what it's done now, what it's going to do next when it has a full Toyota power plant and not one from Subaru. And the aftermarket on the GR86 is absolutely crazy. I mean, there is no shortage of any and everything that you can do to that car. I'm talking every single aero kit, wheel. I mean, even when it comes to the motor, as far as what you could do on the boxer engine, what you can do for turbo kits, what you can do for power. I mean, everything from the racing series, from time attack cars, from street cars, drifting. I mean, it is nonstop on the GR86. And so with that success, you already know that the next iteration, if it has this new G20E motor, even better. But it was just cool to see that just how much is being sold, how much from Gazoo Racing does well. I mean, I benefit from it because I'm in the GR Corolla. We're not selling 11,000 units every single year, because if we were, the aftermarket for us would have been out of here. Now, as I'm coming to an end of this, we are going to talk about GR Corolla updates because it's our favorite segment. Now, like I've always said, if you haven't checked my podcast in video format on YouTube or Spotify, audio format on Apple Podcasts and everywhere else you listen to a podcast, but if you haven't listened to my video format, go check it out. But my YouTube channel also has this other side, and that's the world of the GR Corolla and the build and things I do on that car, because that's a very fun car and I love the platform, the community, and I'm here for the long haul. So I did some installs today. As of this recording, a friend of mine, Chris Hachiburu, he had to put on the Racer X oil catch can. Shot a quick video on that, just showing people the quick install, simple, easy. I love Racer X stuff. I'm shooting this stuff too and kind of pinpointing their stuff because I want to do some more work with them. So I'm trying to, show, hey, here's my value. I like your stuff. What can we do? Can we work out things? That's what I'm trying to work my way there. I'm trying to show first before I'm asking, have a little bit of a portfolio if you see what I'm saying. So we did down the GR Corolla. Last week, obviously, I talked about the Tokyo Auto Salon and all the stuff that's coming and the ideas I have, the different parts that are coming. I have the throttle controller input piece coming. That's going to be a good video because that's going to talk about one of the things that many people discuss on this car. That's the rev hang. That's also the delay that happens if you try to bounce out of first gear sometimes, and it's just like, nah, hold on a second, and then it gives you power. So all those delays and things in the throttle input, and that's going to be addressed when it comes to that controller there. And then gradually, like I said, moving into the bigger installs, the head work, turbo related things, tuning. Like I'm slow walking it because when I get to that stage, that head work stage that I want to do myself, I'm got to pull the car into the garage, and we're really going to be in there for a few weeks. We're going to be chilling, slow walking, baby steps, this entire thing. I need to get a workbench set up. Like I said, as I get closer to episode 100, I'm going to change up some things. So the garage is going to be worked on. We're going to have like a workbench. We're just going to have some space, and I'm just trying to curate the things. But as far as like the car, everything I've seen at Tokyo Auto Salon, I found the wheels I want. Advan GT Beyond R's are absolutely sick. Okay, I need. Now, obviously, things cost money. Things take time. Things take effort. And that's what I'm here to do. This is part of that foundation, that catalyst. Next week is the Houston Auto Show. I am excited, okay? I'm definitely going there. I got my press pass credentials. They emailed them to me. I'll be there on press day, 8 a.m. sharp, okay, with the camera. I'll make sure that I am well hydrated, well fed. I'm coming in there to record what they got new in there, hoping to see some exciting things, some cars, and just go around. Even if it isn't brand new things, I just like car shows altogether. And if I see anyone from like Texas auto writers, journalists, I'm running up on them. Okay, here's the card. What can I do to get involved? Here's the card. What do you need to see from me so I can also be here? Here's the card. How do I get behind the wheel? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to be going around and making sure I'm showing myself and being present. And then slowly but surely, hey, if it takes till next year I'm going to be at the auto show doing the same thing again. And by that time, I'll be on episode like 150 or something. So we're just going to keep it going. So until then, that is it for this episode of the CarQuicks Podcast. Like I said, it wasn't the largest amount of news, but listen, I love reading automotive news every week, and I love providing you with some insights on what's going on and what things are happening in there. And I'm glad that you're here every week joining me. And I'll be back here next week. And like I say every week, do as you wish and do as you may. This is Cameron Biggs, your host. This was another episode of the CarQuicks Podcast. I'll see y'all next week. Peace.